We've been talking about peace. The idea of peace is very important in the theology and the pedagogy of the community of Christ. And also what stands out to me is the title that's been given to the Lord Jesus Christ. Jesus, the peaceful one. But in the Gospel of Matthew, we read the following words of the Lord: "Think not that I came to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword." Is Jesus really the peaceful one, or maybe he's the fighting one?
So that's a good question, Jan. So first of all, that passage.
I'm asking because I'm struggling with it, really.
Yeah. The passage is Jesus wants us to first of all follow him wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important decision we can make is for or against Jesus. So to follow Jesus means to follow him 100%. So this passage that you're struggling with is about how Jesus's call will divide families. So the sword is a metaphor for saying, I will bring into your families conflict, because some of you will choose me and some of you will not. And that will cause a rupture in relationships. So it's not the sword of war. It's the conflict that comes into families when we're following Jesus.
The declaration, I'm on the side of the Lord, I'm on the side of peace, I'm on the side of Zion, causes the sword on the other side to rise. One of the biggest disagreements that may happen in a family is because of differences in spirituality. And I have a feeling, that when it comes to friendship, when it comes to family, and the biggest conflicts arise around spirituality, around faith, these people should really think whether they make friends, whether they are friends, whether they are still a family.
Yes. So I think one also has to look at the Sermon on the Mount, especially, to get where Jesus really is. So when Jesus says, don't retaliate, walk the second mile, turn the other cheek, love your enemies, it's a very clear message there. So if we have conflicts with people, we're still meant to love them.
Mm-hmm. And no sarcasm there. Actually turning the other cheek, praying for your enemies always carries this element of sarcasm. I'm going to show you I love you, right? I'm turning the other cheek, burn in hell. You can look at their eyes and their faces. Hatred is very much visible, just like love.
Yeah. So Poland has had more than its fair share of conflicts in history. So what's the message of hope from your church to Polish people about peace?
I hope we get it clearer in this sense. We are very much committed to helping one another. That's an obvious fact. We are a church, a community as well, but also to extend that help to the others. I really liked all those pre-pandemic moments. Now it's kind of changing, and I hope we are going to come back to square one, to also participate in all the possible charity work along with other churches. But there is this element of prejudice in the Polish nation, and I'm not blaming Polish people for that, for this element of prejudice and feeling insecure when it comes to different faiths, different in the sense like other faiths. The most painful thing that happened to the Polish nation is the fact that this is the differences, this is the prejudice, these are the hostilities that kept destroying this nation. The idea for what the Commonwealth of Poland was supposed to be in, for example, the 16th or of the 17th century, is to be the first nation in Europe not to have stakes, not to have religious conflicts. And somehow we lost it. I do understand why. There were philosophers, and also the Catholic Pope John Paul II said that there is something that's called the spirit of being Polish. But I sometimes take these quotes out of context. And what Karol Wojtyła, later on the Catholic Pope John Paul II, was actually saying should be put in a broader context. John Paul II very often made references to the glorious, wonderful history of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the land of peace, the land of nations. The 19th century where there was no Poland anymore, and nobody really thought of it ever gaining independence. The nations that used to live, that lived on the Polish ground and the Lithuanian ground, were crying out for their Commonwealth of Poland to come back. I have these powerful quotes in my mind by Taras Shevchenko, the poet, the national poet of the Ukrainians, who actually depicted the Commonwealth, the Polish Commonwealth, as his spiritual homeland, the homeland that the nations of Poland, as it was said, lost at some point. And the following decades, at the end of 19th century, at the beginning of the 20th century, the idea of Polish nation being more focused on like one ethnic group, for me, is a huge contradictory to the idea of being a citizen of Commonwealth, being Polish, because everybody in the Commonwealth could be the citizen of Commonwealth. That is a Polish person. A Polish person was a person of peace. In the 17th century and earlier, once the Commonwealth of Poland and Lithuania was established, the idea of gente and nazione was introduced. Like gente was the ethnic group. So you could be whatever ethnic group you wanted and whatever religious group you wanted. And there was nazione, right? So nazione was the citizenship. It wasn't just one religion. It wasn't just one language. It wasn't just like one culture. Everybody could be a Polish person, because the Polishness was kind of a spiritual concept. And so you could be gente Rutenus, for example, so a Ruthenian person, now we would say Ukrainian, I guess, or a Jewish and still be a Pole. This idea, there were struggles to actually bring back this idea at the beginning of the 20th century, when after a long time, after 123 years of occupation, Poland gained its independence, but this spirit of Polishness, of being a Commonwealth citizen, was no longer there. People were divided. World War II was coming. Nations of Europe were divided, and Poles were divided as well. Me personally, I am a member and I am a citizen of the Commonwealth of Poland. And so in my way, in a way, I'm this romantic Pole, you know. I miss the good old days that for me are my own mythology of being a Polish citizen. And I hope that in a way, coming back to what we're talking about, I hope that the church can bring this element back. A Polish person as a person of peace, not a person of pride, and not a person of prejudice.
And we have the same struggles in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
Both churches are international churches, multi-ethnic churches. Mm-hmm. We worship in 14 languages in 60 countries, mm-hmm. and Community of Christ. So that diversity means that, first of all, in the church we're human. Mm-hmm. And brothers and sisters, one family.
This is what Paul the Apostle was preaching. There are no languages in the outer world, in that world, in the afterlife. There are going to be no nations. There's going to be unity.
Yeah. Paul is amazing in his brilliant insight there.
He went through a lot. He wasn't a good boy, by the way. So, you know, we learn from mistakes. People sometimes forget about Paul the Apostle. He was actually a criminal, let's be honest, at the very beginning. He was not a good guy. And what happened was this personal revelation that he had. He encountered Christ and he changed. And people at the very beginning of Paul's mission, people didn't want to believe that. When they saw him, like Christians, for example, they were afraid of him. This guy is a murderer. This guy is our worst enemy. And this worst enemy of Christianity came to be the first theologian of Christianity and one of the first spiritual leaders. Yeah. That's a paradox, but life is full of paradoxes. I mean, from our earthly perspective, let's be honest. I mean, God has got like heavenly perspective. There are no paradoxes from where he is, and no, there are no paradoxes. He knows what he's doing when he's leading his children.